Hi, welcome back. So in this video, we would discuss about observability for a GenAI agentic application. In the previous chapters, we have seen how to create GenAI agentic application using ADK. For observability, we would use the tool Langfuse. Nowadays, many tools are available, but most of them are proprietary. There are tools available from AWS ecosystem and Google Cloud ecosystem. Similarly, there is a popular tool called Langsmith from LangChain LangGraph. But these are not open source tools. So here we are using Langfuse for observability, which is an open source tool for GenAI observability. So let's discuss first where observability fits in the overall schema of things of an agentic application. When you try to implement something in production, along with developing the application, you also need to take care of some additional stuff, which is depicted in this diagram. For example, you may develop the application using ADK or strands. So I'm just taking two frameworks here, but ultimately once your application is developed, you would put in a runtime environment, right? Which could be your Vertex AI cloud or AWS cloud. AWS has Agent Core now for running agentic application. And also if you have something on-premise, then you would have your own setup. But broadly, these are things that we need to take care of at the time of deploying that in production. So first is the runtime that we need to take care of. And then we have tools, right? And tools could be some of the tools. For example, in this diagram, if you see tool 1 and 2 are coming from external sources, and hence it is coming through an MCP. And tool 3, 4, and 5 are in your own environment. This is your tool, so you can call directly from your ADK or strands from your agent, right? Now, when you are using tools from outside server, it is also important to take care of authentication and authorization, and that is where you get to see this part here. So this is the second component. Third component is the memory part, where you can take care of both short-term and long-term memory. Short-term memory means that whatever chat happens, if you are creating a chat bot or any application, the current context, and if you have a long-term memory, then even the interactions that has happened in the past, say 1 month back or 2 months back, that also it can remember. Now the fourth component, which I briefly talk about, is the authentication and authorization. This could happen in two scenarios. One is when you are using external tools like MCP through an MCP, or even for your own internal tool access also, you sometime may want to have a check in between before allowing a tool to go and access something, whether it should be authorized to do that, and also the authentication of the user. So those things can be done by something like an identity management. So some of the platform like AWS Agent Core, they already provide this inbuilt within their Agent Core platform. But if not, if we are doing it externally, then we'd have to take care of this. And this can be done by using any of the OIDC provider. I have shown some of the common OIDC providers, like you can have Okta, you can have sign in with Google, you can have sign in with Apple, you have Microsoft Entra and Amazon Cognito, etc. Various OIDC provider, which you can use for your identity management. And then the fifth component, which is what is the topic of our discussion today, is observability, right? Now, when it comes to a GenAI agentic application, observability becomes very critical, because whatever we have for a typical web application or mobile application, that anyway we need to do, plus something extra for a GenAI application, because you have the LLM now on top of all other components that you see in a typical application. And GenAI, because it has something called non-deterministic workflow, hence the observability becomes more important for a GenAI application, where you need to see how the LLM is behaving, how the agent is behaving, how the tool calls are behaving, and all that stuff. And this is the topic of today's discussion. So this component 5 that you are seeing here is what we would cover today. And we are going to do that with the help of the tool Langfuse. So in my code, I would show you how to integrate our ADK agent with Langfuse and how to see the output of the Langfuse observability tool. Now, briefly about Langfuse. So if you go to their website and go to the integration, you would see frameworks and LLM models that it supports. So in the framework, you see most of the frameworks are there. For example, we are using Google ADK here, LangChain LangGraph, Llama Index here, and then Strands Agent here. So almost all the frameworks are supported here, and all the models, like for example, we'll be using Google Gemini in this demo, so supported out here, and all the other prominent models are all supported by Langfuse. Now that we are using Google ADK, so let's see the integration here. If we go inside to this page, what we need to do is first we need to install the packages, which is basically Langfuse and then Google ADK, and then open interface. After that, you need to set up one secret key and a public API key that you can do by going to this website, and you can create this for free. And then you need to you would import this and then initiate your Langfuse client, and then you would set up your open telemetry. Only this much you need to do, and then this agent is anyway we have already done enough on creating applications with ADK. So one of our application will pick up, we set it up the way it has given up to this step number 3, and then we'll be able to integrate Langfuse with our ADK agent. So now let's see that in our code. So we have created one basic agent here. So we have the agent.py, and then in the environment file we would have the API keys. So in the .env file, we would have to set the API keys. So we'd have one Google API key, and then we'd have to set the Langfuse public key, which would start with PK hyphen, and the secret key, which would start with SK hyphen, and then the Langfuse host, which you need to put cloud.langfuse.com, right? This is for EU regions. If it is for US, there is a different URL. So in the agent.py, first you would import agent, and so I'm just implementing a simple agent with only Google search. This part is anyway you're familiar, you have seen that in the previous videos. So focus is more on how to set up Langfuse. So here you set up the Langfuse observability. What you do is from Langfuse you import get client, and then you initiate that client, and then the next step is set the open telemetry instrumentation. Here that open inference instrumentation.google.adk, from there you need to import Google ADK instrumenter, and then you set this up, right? So this is the only thing you need to do, very minimal amount of code. Then you are anyway familiar with the agent part of that. So this is very basic. We only calling the model, giving a name, and then only the one tool, which is our Google search. Now let's run this application and see how Langfuse is capturing all the data points. So to run it, as you know, we need to type ADK web, and that would launch this web application, and the server would be running on port 8000, as you have seen in my previous videos. Now let's ask a few questions here and see how the data points are getting logged in Langfuse. So if I ask what is the weather of Bangalore today, so I got a response now. So let's ask another few questions. So I got a response here. So let's ask a few more questions. What is Streamlit? So we got a response. So we have invoked few questions now, and let's see how this is getting captured. Now, if you go back to Langfuse on cloud.langfuse.com, can sign in using your login ID. Initially, when you come in, you need to set up a project. I have already set up a project called ADK Langfuse Project 1. And if I go to the project, now if you see, this is giving me the data for last 24 hours. Right now, I ran the query for 4 times. The invocation has happened 4 times. I have used the model Gemini 2.5 Flash. And based on the current billing rate, it is also giving some approximate cost. Then you also see stresses by time. So we invoke that just now. There are 4 counts here. And there are model costs that you have already seen. So if you have multiple models, then you can see it by that. I have only one model, Gemini, so it's only one line. Again, you need by type. What is the input, output, the reasoning, and then total. So I have only one user here, so I am seeing the cost of only one user. The whole cost is coming just for one user. And also you see the other parameter like latency and overall the model latency also you see here. So I have only one user here, and so as you can see in last 24 hours. So here also you can look for different time period sessions. I have created 2 sessions in last 1 hour. So there was one created for 10 seconds and then another one created for 2 minutes now. And you saw the here the breakup also, the uses and the total cost. And if you want to see the traces in more detail with the user and the session IDs, you can see it. What is the latency, how many tokens were used, and the cost. And then in the dashboard, so in the dashboard, if I see my data in last 1 hour, then I can see the count traces, total cost, cost by model name, cost by environment. So here anyway, I have only one user, so this data is like that. But if you have when you have multiple users, you can also see the cost here. So 20 use cases, top 20 use cases, observation by cost, and then the more granular, the trace data that you can see. Now this dashboard also, you can have multiple dashboard, by this is coming by default. And if I see only for last 1 hour, so I can also see data here on the user management dashboard, right? Similarly, if I go to latency and I again go for data for last 1 hour, I can see representation of that latency data in different formats. This is in a nutshell how you set up Langfuse for your agentic application. So I'm stopping this video here. In our next video, we would cover some more interesting topics on ADK, agent, and agentic workflow. Thanks for your time.